how to use along, how to read in the IELTS exam, different learning styles, and your questions answered in this episode of
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hello, I'm Reza.
And my name's Craig.
And with over 45 years of teaching experience between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you, Craig?
I'm very well, thank you. And how are you, my friend?
I'm fine. What have you been up to?
Oh, not much. Working, very busy, but that's a good thing. And you?
Yeah, the same. Work. I'm looking forward to the holiday for Christmas soon. That'll be fun.
Me too. Well, let's dive straight in, which means let's begin immediately. We have an audio message from Enrique, who moved from Colombia to Australia.
Hi, Craig. Hi, Reza. This is Enrique. I've been listening to you for a while. I have to confess that at the very beginning, I was picking up episodes with subjects that I was struggling at. Then I listened to some episodes that I thought I had mastered. And guess what? You had too much to offer that I'm not missing out any episode ever since. I've been studying English for 2 years now, and I moved from Colombia to Australia to do so. Gentlemen, you are a gift. I'm so glad that life brought you together to make such a positive impact on people's lives. I can feel the joy in both of you podcasting while having a good cup of tea with some biscuits. Moving on, I have some questions. Could you guys elaborate on the different uses of the word along? It seems quite common and I don't feel confident enough to use it. Lastly, is the word should used in formal English just to replace the word if, as in, should you decide not to go, your money will be refunded. That's all. I hope life treats you well because you are a force of good. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you very much, Enrique. That's a really nice message. Thank you for paying us those compliments.
Yes, thank you.
You've been very, very kind. And we're really glad that we seem to be making a difference to your English and your life. You've moved from Colombia to Australia. Wow.
Please tell us where you are in Australia. It's a huge country, Enrique. Whereabout are you? Are you in one of the big cities like Sydney, Melbourne, or somewhere in a small town?
And maybe you could give us some feedback about Australian tipping. Remember, Alberto Gallego told us that he thought in his village nobody really tipped. So we'd like to know if in your part of Australia they tip.
Are you tipping over there, Enrique? Just one small thing, Enrique. You did not use the phrasal verb miss. You said miss up any episodes instead of miss out. So you should say, I'm not missing out any episodes, or just I'm not missing any episodes.
But what a great message, and your pronunciation is really good. Keep up the good work, please, Enrique.
Yep, your English sounds wonderful. Now, your questions, the first one with along. Along can be a preposition. For example, Coco likes to walk along with us. When we go for a walk on the beach, he likes to walk along with us. Al lado or junto. Or another example, there's a cycle lane, a bicycle lane, that runs along the length of the promenade. Along the length, a lo largo. Along the length of the promenade, which is next to the beach. What about along as an adverb, Reza?
Here's an example. When I meet my dad for lunch, my sister likes to come along. She likes to acompañar. Or I was walking along when I saw an accident. Walking along. Or the policeman said, there's nothing to see here. Move along.
That's what the policeman said to everybody when I had my car accident 2 weeks ago. Move along. Nothing to see here. Move along. So along can be an adverb. Come along, move along, walking along. Or a preposition. The dog likes to walk along with us when we go for a walk. Now, what was Enrique's other question? Something about should?
Should, yeah. You said, I think you asked, Enrique, if should was a replacement for if. I think that was your question, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You give an example of what was a conditional sentence. Should you decide not to go, your money will be refunded. And you're saying, so does should equal if? Well, not exactly, but it can be used in a conditional sentence because there's actually 2 or 3 ways of doing some conditional sentences. Instead of saying, if you decide not to go, your money will be refunded. If you decide, just if plus you decide, present simple, I can take away the word if and say, should you decide?
And what's the difference in meaning?
Well, actually, there's an intermediate stage. I've jumped from step 1 to step 3. If I tell you step 2, you'll get it. So, if you decide is the normal way, let's say. But a slightly more formal way is if you should decide not to go. I can add the word should. If you should decide not to go. And then what I can do for step 3 is get rid of the word if you should decide to go. Take away if and put should at the beginning. Should you decide not to go?
So what is the use of should in that example as a modal verb? Because normally it's used for giving advice. You should go to the doctor. You should save more money. If you should decide to go, what is that actually? How is that modifying decide or changing decide?
It adds the idea of possibility. So normally we think of should as advice or obligation. But actually, in a conditional sentence, if you add the word should, it just gives emphasis to the idea that it's only a possibility. If you should decide not to go, only a possibility, because it's possible that you go, it's possible that you don't go. But if you should decide not to go, and we just get rid of if and put should at the beginning, and we call that an inversion. So should you decide not to go, it just gives the idea of it's a possibility. So that's a special function of the word should that is not the most commonly known for advice or obligation.
And it does sound quite formal to me. Should you join us next week, you will learn some more English along the way. Sobre la marcha. We hope that's answered your questions, Enrique, and thanks so much for getting in touch. Reza, we've got an email from Anya from Mexico. Shall I read it or would you like to? You choose.
I don't tell you what, we could split it.
Let's split it. You go first.
I'll do the first bit and Craig will do the second bit. Hi, Reza and Craig.
Hi.
This is Anya from Mexico. How are you guys? I just sent, she writes, but we would use a present continuous, Anya. I'm just sending, because you're doing it at the time, it's in progress, present continuous. I'm just sending this email to say thank you for your fabulous podcast.
Actually, let me stop you. That's a really good point to make, I think, to use the present continuous when you're beginning an email to say why you're writing. I'm writing to you to request information. I'm writing to you to thank you for your gift. I'm writing to request an interview. So say why you're writing at the very beginning and use present continuous. Sorry, please continue.
She says, I've been listening to your podcast since last year, every day when I walk the dog. Good time to listen to the podcast.
Yep.
I moved to London last year with my boyfriend, who is not English, but Serbian. But he has lived in London for more than 30 years. I like London and I have adapted to life here very well. And my first baby was born 2 months ago here in London. Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations. Fantastic, Anya.
She says, I'm a biologist and I used to be a high school teacher in my country. And I have to say that I have never studied English in my life until now.
She writes very well.
Yeah, incredible. I've been studying English for the last 4 or 5 months. not long, 4 or 5 months, but I feel a little bit slow in my learning. It sounds to me like you're pretty quick, For some reason, I can understand everything people say, but I can't speak properly. I think it's because the lack of practice. But when I'm alone, I can speak fluently and clearly. I don't know why.
That sounds to me a bit like self-confidence, perhaps, that you feel a little insecure. And I'm exactly the same, Anya. I've been living in Spain for over 20 years, and still sometimes when I'm with Spanish speakers that I don't know very well, maybe they're speaking very quickly, I'm in a formal situation perhaps, I get anxious about my Spanish. It still happens after so many years, so I sympathize with you. So Anya continues, my goal is to do the IELTS exam so I can study my master's degree in forensic science. Wow. I'm struggling with my reading skills. To struggle is luchar. I'm struggling with my reading skills because the questions are tricky for me, a little difficult. It stresses me so much that I only have 20 minutes to read, understand, and answer the tricky questions. Also, the writing task with the academic language is difficult for me. I can do it, but it took me a long time. What do you recommend I do? I like to go to school, and it has helped me a lot, but almost everything I know about English and vocabulary I have learned from you. Oh, that's nice to hear. I'm pleased we're helping you. Anya finishes, thanks for everything. I wanted to send a voice message, but I couldn't use SpeakPipe. Well, I'll explain more about SpeakPipe in a moment, but Reza, IELTS, you teach IELTS a lot more than I do. What advice do you have for Anya as far as IELTS is concerned, especially with the reading?
Well, Anya, thanks a lot for your email, and I totally understand your problem. It's a very common problem. In the IELTS, the timing of the reading is extremely tight. There really is not a lot of time. I've tried it myself as a tested myself. I don't mean I've done the actual IELTS exam, but I've tried to time myself doing it, and I just about have enough time to do it. So it's a very common problem that people run out of time. Above all, keep practicing the exam, the format, and you will get quicker at it and hopefully better. But I know the IELTS exam is a bit weird because you never know exactly what type of questions are going to be in the reading, because there are many different types that they can ask, and each exam is slightly different. Well, that's true, but you can become familiar with the various types of question that can be in the exam, and then, you won't be surprised whatever type of question appears in the exam. One very important thing is reading strategies. I would definitely skim through, that's SKIM, skim through the whole passage quickly first. Quickly. Don't worry about words you don't understand. There will be words you don't understand for sure. Just get through the text to get the basic meaning and to follow the discourse, the development of the text, and more or less remember the main ideas and the order they come in. Then start looking at the questions and refer back to the text, but don't attempt to read the whole text again in detail. There's no time for that. You have to just scan it. SCAN, scan read. So you have to go to where you think the answer might be. Could be a sentence or two, a word or two. Might be a bit longer. It might be half a paragraph or something. Go there and try to clarify what the answer is and proceed that way. So first you've skimmed the whole text. Then you look at the questions, and as necessary, keep going back to the text, scanning. That is what's recommended by IELTS, the IELTS organization. That's what I recommend. And in fact, IELTS, they don't give you much time to try and force you to do that. If they give you 2 hours to do it, you would find it much easier. You would probably even get a higher mark. But I'm afraid they don't want you to have much time. They've done it like that on purpose. So you have to practice that skimming and scanning technique. That's really the only advice I can give, and just keep practicing them and you will get better.
That's very good advice, not only for the IELTS exam, but for all Cambridge exams too, with the reading. And one thing, just keep reading as much as possible, Anya. Fiction books, try to get graded readers, perhaps at your level, and read as much as possible, not only practicing exam tasks, but also reading in general to increase your fluency. And it's always good to read to improve your English in general. And as far as the speaking's concerned, we've said this before, but try to find a meet-up group in your area where you could go along and practice your English with other English speakers. One website that will help you with that is meetup.com. That's meetup.com. You can find a group. And because you're in London, I don't think it will be difficult for you to find a group of people practicing their English together. Now, you had a problem with SpeakPipe. Well, you can go to the website and directly click on the microphone icon on the right. And if you have a microphone connected to your computer, just record your voice and send it to us. You have a maximum of 90 seconds. On your mobile phone, there's no problem with Android phones. If you have a Samsung or an similar Android phone and you're using a Chrome or Firefox browser, then it works perfectly. If you're using an iPhone, if you're on iOS, you do have to download the SpeakPipe app from the App Store. So it's a little more complicated on an iPhone, but the app is completely free and you can send us as many messages as you like.
Craig, we have some more feedback. We have a comment on the English podcast website. It's from Rosa Davis. I don't know where she's from. Do you know where she comes from?
She doesn't say where she's from, so no, I don't know. And also, she says in the message that she needs to practice reading and comprehension, but I'm wondering if it's listening comprehension that she needs to practice as well as reading, or reading comprehension. That's not clear. She says, in my situation, I need to read the text and listen because my study style is visual. I hope you can give me some advice on this point. And there's one thing I like about this message from Rosa is that she knows how she learns. She knows that she is a visual learner. So I'd like to speak a little about that. But we've given some advice just now on how to improve your reading. What do you think, Reza? Do you think maybe we should give advice on listening, or do you think it's reading comprehension that Rosa's having problems with?
I get the feeling she's talking about listening comprehension, because she says she reads the text and listens. So I presume, Rosa, you're asking about listening comprehension.
Oh, well, that's easy. Just listen to us. We have nearly 240 podcasts for you to listen to, Rosa. So go and listen to all of the back catalogue, all of the older podcasts. That will improve your listening. And then, of course, songs, TV series with no subtitles, but maybe subtitles in English. Listen in original version. And any other listening that you can find on the internet, any listening at all, the same as any reading in English, is going to improve your skills.
It is interesting that she mentioned that her study style was mostly visual. I find that very interesting.
Me too. And I did a little research on the 3 types of learners. I'd be interested to see what you are, Reza. Now, visual learners, like Rosa, that makes up 65% of people. Visual learners learn very well from anything visual, like if you write on a whiteboard, if they look at graphs, pictures. They're very good with maps. They have a very good sense of direction, which means they can find their way with maps very easily. Visual learners also have very good dress sense, so they match colours very well. And they also tend to write on paper as they're listening. They doodle Doodle. To doodle is to draw little shapes or cartoons or things on paper. And they're also very good note takers. Does that describe you?
Well, in part, but perhaps I'm more of an auditory learner myself. That's AUDITORY, auditory. Apparently, according to statistics, about 30% of people prefer auditory learning. That means you've got a good memory for conversations, spoken conversations. Podcast listeners, presumably, have a good auditory learning style because they're listening. Also just chatting or listening to lectures, dictation, and of course songs. Anything really verbal, anything spoken and heard tends to suit auditory learners.
I think I'm probably a mixture of visual and auditory. When I want to learn something, I don't usually go to internet blogs and read. I like to watch YouTube videos. So I Google what I want to learn on YouTube, or I YouTube search in YouTube, and then I watch a video that really connects with my way of learning, and I learn faster when I watch a video than when I read a text. I'm sure about that. There's another group, though, that makes up only 5% of people, so it's quite small, not many people, and they are kinesthetic learners, KINESTHETIC. Now, these are people who find it very, very difficult to sit still. They like moving. They fidget in class. To fidget is to move in your chair, to keep getting up and to keep changing the position of your body. To fidget, FIDGET. These people need to get up and move around. They like to move. They have a very high energy level, and they learn best through role playing, like acting in the class, any physical activity like running to the whiteboard. They like working in groups and moving around dynamically. They work and speak with their hands very much. So these people are very physical. If you know what kind of learner you are, then you can use activities and methods that suit you, and you'll learn better and quicker.
Although the truth is, the vast majority of us are probably a mixture of all three in different proportions.
Yeah.
It's very unlikely that you're going to completely ignore any of those styles of learning. Unless, of course, you're deaf, you can't hear, then there'll be no auditory input. And if you're blind, there'll be no visual input. But apart from that, I would say most of us mix the different styles.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think I'm mixed as well. I did find an interesting questionnaire that helps you find out what kind of learner you are. And there's a link in the show notes over at inglespodcast.com/236. And it's on the VARK website, VARK. But I wrote down 4 questions that I'd like to ask Reza to see if we are similar learners. Okay, here's the first one, Reza. Imagine you're buying a new non-fiction book. So apart from the price, other than the price, don't consider the price, what would most influence your decision to buy a non-fiction book? Would it be the way that it looks, the picture is appealing? Would it be it has real life stories and experiences and examples? Maybe a friend talks about it and recommends it? Or maybe you just read parts of it very quickly to see if you like it. Which of those 4 ways is more appealing?
If I had the chance to quickly read parts of it, that would be the best method for me. But I might not have the chance to do that. But that would be my first choice. What about you?
I would go more on recommendations from a friend. So if you said, hey, Craig, this book is really good, I would probably value that more. I wouldn't need to read it because I'd trust a recommendation of somebody who likes similar things. Interesting.
Well, I would combine, your recommendation for me to buy that book might give me my initial interest. But then I would like to get to the bookshop and read a little bit. That's the bit that would really seal the deal for me, really make it definitive.
Push you over the edge, make you buy it. Here's another one for you. You want to learn a new program on the computer, a new skill or a new game on the computer. So what would you do? Would you use the controls or the keyboard? Would you talk with people who know about the program? Would you follow the diagrams in the book that came with the program? Or would you read the written instructions that came with the program? So that's reading, following diagrams, talking to people, or touching and moving the controls with your hands.
I think a mixture of follow the diagrams in the book and talk with people who know the program. I don't think I'd read written instructions for learning a computer program. I might for some other things, but not for learning a computer program. It just sounds too boring. I couldn't possibly take in the information because it would bore me so much.
No, I agree. I would probably follow the diagrams in the book. I'm more image focused than text focused, so I prefer pictures than text. Okay, let's move on to food. So you're going to choose food at a restaurant or a cafe. Would you choose something you've had there before, which sounds a bit boring, so you'd repeat something you've liked before? Would you ask the waiter's opinion, listen to the waiter, or maybe ask friends to recommend something? Would you look at what other people are eating on tables near to you, or look at pictures of each dish, maybe on the wall? Or would you choose from the written description in the menu?
Aha, that's a very interesting question.
That depends what kind of person you are, you see.
Yes, it certainly does. But I think there are other factors which influence, like what type of food is it and where are you? I mean, if I was in a foreign country, let's say China, for example, and it wasn't written in English, I would probably rely heavily on the pictures, because otherwise I wouldn't have a clue what I'm going to eat. I would definitely go for the pictures.
Maybe point at a different table and say one of those, yeah.
There's not much else you could do. But presuming it was in English and I perfectly understood what I'd be getting more or less. Well, first of all, when it comes to food specifically, I'm the type of person who very rarely repeats in a restaurant. I just don't like the idea. Even if I've had a dish and I know that it's brilliant and I really enjoyed it, I prefer to try something new. So I only repeat when I know that there's nothing else that I haven't tried yet that I might like. Otherwise, I'm going to try the new thing. I'm very adventurous when it comes to trying new food, I must say. So repetition is going to be my last option. But I would look at other diners, people eating, and if virtually everybody seems to be eating the same thing, well, common sense makes, and it looks good, common sense makes me think, oh, well, that might be the speciality of this restaurant. Let's go for that.
I'm completely different. If I've tasted something that I really, really like, I would repeat it. Because why would I risk ordering food that I've never had that maybe I won't like when I know there's something on the menu that's really, really good and I love it? It doesn't make sense to me to gamble and take that chance. You are much more adventurous when it comes to food than I am.
Well, yeah, but I see your point as well, Craig. Occasionally, I do go to restaurants specifically to have a certain dish. You know, knowing that they do that one thing really well there, I would actually make an effort to go to a restaurant to repeat a specific dish sometimes. So I take your point. Yeah, I really do.
So if you'd like to see more of these questions, again, the link is on our website. It's kind of fun. It will improve your reading of English and also maybe help you to find out what kind of learner you are, which will help you in your English studies. Next, we have a voice message from Nathaniel from the Philippines, who is at the moment in UAE, the United Arab Emirates.
Hello, Reza and Greg. I am Nathaniel from Philippines. I am currently working here in UAE as a nurse. I've been listening to your podcast for a couple of months, and I must say they are very, very helpful for me because I am planning to take the IELTS as soon as possible. I have this problem. I have a hard time when and how to use these words. For example, more people, most people, a lot of people. For me, they are sound the same only. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your message, Nathaniel. I apologize for mispronouncing your name, Nathaniel. So, from the Philippines, living in UAE, soon to take the IELTS exam. We have spoken about the IELTS exam before. If you go to inglespodcast.com/68, we spoke for a while about the IELTS exam and gave some advice and some tips. We also mentioned IELTS in episodes 24 and 15. So again, inglespodcast.com/15 or /24. Reza, any comments?
Yes, just a little comment about the IELTS. It's interesting that we've mentioned two people who are thinking about doing the IELTS test. Nathaniel, I presume you're doing the IELTS to do with passport or visa reasons, to do with your job as a nurse. Whereas Anya from Mexico mentioned the IELTS, and she specifically talked about her problems with the academic writing. So I presume she's doing the academic strand of IELTS, because there are two types. There's the academic and the general. I imagine Nathaniel is doing the general for visa or passport reasons, and I imagine Anya is doing the academic because it's something to do with study. So there are actually just two different reasons for doing the exam. Nathaniel, I hope it goes well.
Yeah, good luck.
Just keep practicing it as much as you can. The same advice that I gave to Anya applies to whether you're doing the academic or the general exam. It doesn't really matter. The strategy is the same.
So yeah, good luck, and go back, listen to those episodes 68, 24 and 15. And if you have any specific questions, Nathaniel, please let us know. We will try to help you more. Now, your question about more people, most people, a lot of people, more is used for comparatives when you're comparing things. You could say, for example, more people live in Madrid than in Valencia. And you can use most as a superlative. The most, for example. So this podcast is the most popular podcast in iTunes for Spanish speakers.
Or most people are very generous and kind, although there are a few exceptions. But most people, the majority of people, it can mean.
So we live in Valencia. Most people in Valencia support the Valencia football team. And a lot of people. Remember that people is plural, so one person, two people, three people. It's different in Spanish. You say la gente. So people, a lot of people, muchas personas, muchos hombres, muchas chicas, a lot of people, a lot of work. You can use a lot of with countable or uncountable nouns. Have I missed anything about those three?
No, but I would just add something that instead of saying a lot of people, you can say many people. So a lot of people equals many people, because as Craig said, people's countable, so many. If he said a lot of rice, arroz, then you could replace that with much rice. But people is countable, so a lot of people equals many people.
And one more thing, be careful of lots of with an S. So you can say a lot of people and you can say lots of people, but you cannot say a lots of people. So try to keep those three words in your head, a lot of, and lots of. There are lots of people in Valencia, or there's lots of potatoes on my plate, for example. And now it's your turn to practice your English. You can send us a voice message, as we've heard in this episode. And we love hearing your voices and hearing where you are in the world. You can do that on SpeakPipe on your mobile phone, speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. You can record in Google Chrome and in Firefox.
Or send us an email if you like. You can find Craig at inglespodcast.com.
And you can get to Reza at belfastreza@gmail.com.
And as usual, we'd like to thank all our wonderful patrons on Patreon or Patreon, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Patreon. If you would like to join them and be a sponsor, you could have a look at patreon.com/Ingles podcast and become a sponsor yourself for as little as $1 a month. We'd like to thank, as usual, our gold sponsor. That is, of course, Bruno.
Bruno's in New York at the moment with his son. Yeah, he sent an email. Hi, Bruno. Hi, Noah. His son's called Noah. He's in New York on holiday with his son. He sent a photo that will be in this episode on the website at inglespodcast.com. It was really nice to see him with his son doing the tourist thing. I wonder if he's... are you taking a walking tour around New York, Bruno, with Noah?
Or do you want to get away from walking tours for a while? While you're on holiday, the last thing you want to do is a walking tour, because that's what Bruno does for a living.
That's right.
He takes people on walking tours.
And he said in his email, "Hi there, I hope this email finds you both really well. I just wanted to congratulate you both for the wonderful podcast you've been doing, and soon I will send you a voice message. At the moment, I'm celebrating Thanksgiving in the USA. Photo on the website at inglespodcast.com/236. Maybe he's thinking of starting a walking tour of Manhattan. Who knows? Anyway, if you're going to Copenhagen, go to copenhagenwalkingtour.com and support Bruno's tours of that wonderful city. If you're going to Rio de Janeiro, he has one in the favela area. That's favelawalkingtour.com.br. Go and check them out. Go support Bruno. He's a lovely guy. And we do recommend his walking tours of those two cities.
If you want to see a list of all our usual Patreon sponsors, just go to the website and there you'll see everyone's name. But we'd like to thank our most recent sponsors of Patreon, who are Oliver, not sure how to pronounce, Burgos, and Luis Jimenez. So they're our most recent sponsors. Thank you very much to you.
And on next week's episode, we're speaking about homonyms. Can you guess what they are? If you don't know, homo means same, nyms, well, you're going to have to wait until next week. Thanks for listening to this episode. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And cheerio from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.